Oh hey, a new weekly Shonen Jump series. It looks like it has a lot of potential too. I can't wait to see how it... Oh. Oh, it's gone. Well that's okay, that's fine. Look at this new one. This one looks even better than the last one. Surely this one will... No, no. It didn't. Okay, no, that's fine. Yep. By its own nature, Shonen Jump tends to burn through manga like Margaret Reed. As a consequence, it can become very difficult to know whether or not a series, regardless of quality, will be able to stay alive long enough to tell the story it aims out to. This phenomenon has colloquially become known as the U19 Club, or the Under 19 Club. This clever name is both in reference to the idea that many manga get cancelled, or axed, before their 19th chapter has a chance to drop. This means that a majority of these series end before their second or third volume even have a chance to release. This is a fairly strict structure, making it so there are a constant stream of new series coming in and underperforming series going out. While it is sad to see so many series go, the philosophy itself can make a good degree of sense. In general, this method allows only the best of the best to be cultivated, as well as giving as many mangaka as possible their chance to be in the magazine. However, this is not as simple as it may seem. The methods for which a series is cancelled is oftentimes not as obvious as it may seem on the surface, and how deserved a cancellation seems can vary a lot. It's not actually very concrete on what leads a series to cancellation, and none of the actual reasons are ever told to the public, with rare exception. Many people will look at a series' placement in the magazine to be a sign of a series' popularity, and another factor that seems to be relevant is the series that surround it. You could have a very strong and interesting battle shonen, but if it's surrounded by manga that just do it better, it can still be up for cancellation. The biggest factor we can point to for a series' popularity are their volume sales. This is a very concrete look at the popularity of a series, and if a manga sells poor volume numbers, you can be fairly sure it will be cancelled sooner rather than later. However, now is a good time to mention that how good a series' sales are is highly proportional to the genre of the series itself. A gag manga will almost never be expected to sell as much as a battle shonen, as their nature of their genre is more niche and geared towards younger audiences. It's important to realize that Weekly Shonen Jump likes to have a wide variety of series in their magazine, to have something that appeals to as many people as possible. So if a series captures a yet untapped niche, it has a better chance to live compared to an equally popular manga of a widely populated genre. Around now, I think it would be a good time to say that this video is not intended to be a massively researched project, and it is very possible that some of what I say may need an asterisk or two, and I may get a detail wrong here or there, and I welcome any corrections you can find. My purpose here today is to point a magnifying glass at a topic I have an opinion on, being one of the few people who reads everything in the Weekly Shonen Jump magazine. That is all to say that the topic of axe fodder, and why I and others read it, is the focus here. This may come off as rambly, but regardless, I'd like just a few moments of your time to rant about a random, non-consequential thing I happen to care about. So, the big question here is, why do I read axe fodder? It's something I haven't entirely thought through, so hopefully by the time we're done here, I'll have come to some sort of conclusion. Axe fodder is really an interesting topic, as the title itself is transient in a way. Early on in a series' life, it's actually hard to tell if something is axe fodder. Sometimes, a series can seem pretty blatant in its status, being doomed to failure the second it launches. Take I Tell C for example. I Tell C was written and illustrated by Kazusa Inaoka, and started publication on February 1st, 2021, and ran for 21 chapters before ending that same year on the 28th of June. While having 21 chapters technically bars it from the U19 Club, that's more of an idea than a tangible thing anyway. I Tell C, as briefly as possible, is centered around some guy that doesn't matter working with Risa, a girl who, after going through trauma with a kidnapping, uses her empathy with criminals to try to help them move on and accept responsibility for their actions. Right off the bat, that is a pretty odd idea. It may sound nice and such in a description, but for much of the series, Risa is painted to be an oddball, obsessive kind of person, and her obsessive tendencies are often painted in a comedic light. Regardless, this kind of plot is most certainly not something that tends to work very well, and that clearly proved to be the case. This kind of series, while interesting, was a very surprising choice to try to run in the magazine, and I'm honestly surprised that it lasted as long as it did. If I had to guess, this was a case where the magazine wanted to try something new, trying to capture some sort of niche to pull in new readers. Seemingly, this didn't go too well, as the numbers just didn't pull through. I don't really have much more to say on ITLC, so I'll move on to another since cancelled series. One that failed for similar reasons, but at least to me seems a bit more tragic, as the premise had a good degree of promise despite not being suited for the Shonen Jump magazine. Earthchild was written and illustrated by Hideo Shinkai and began publication February 21st, 2022, and ran for 27 chapters until ending on September 4th. The basic premise is actually hard to capture, as the series' direction changes very often, but as simply as possible, in this world, there exists beings called Earth Children, who are born every so often with the sole purpose of saving humanity from threats and the like. They generally act as superweapons not intended to have a huge degree of agency. One day, the unthinkable happens, and an Earthchild falls in love with a normal man. They have a kid who by some miracle ends up also being an Earthchild, and many plot points in fairly quick succession come from this. I wanted to specifically look to this series, as it does a very good job of capturing the tragedy these series go through. Once the initial premise had proven to be unfit, the mangaka continuously tried and failed to change and adapt the story to be more appealing to a wider audience. We of course can't say for certain that this is what happened. It's entirely possible this was Shinkai's complete vision, but as that seems fairly unlikely, I'll go forward under the assumption I am right, and this applies to anything else I speak on, of course. This is something that tends to happen a lot, with varying degrees of severity. It's a natural trait of axe fodder, as a mangaka will of course try their best to keep their series alive, even if the very act of pivoting can only hasten their downfall. I chose Earthchild specifically to encapsulate this idea, as it's fairly recent and captures the act very well. But that's really all I have to say about Earthchild, so let us now pivot into a series that is quite strange. Strange because it's a series that was very strong. Strange because it captured a very popular market. Strange because it sold fairly well. We're going to talk about Phantom Seer. Phantom Seer was written by Togo Goto and drawn by Kento Matsura. It began publication August 31st, 2020, and ended on April 5th, 2021, running for a total of 30 chapters. Phantom Seer, for all intents and purposes, should have been a slam dunk. With a dark, rich, and spooky atmosphere, Phantom Seer served as a darker battle shonen with fantastic art that felt alive and visceral. The power system, while perhaps on the simpler side, allowed for a lot of interesting fights that fit right in with the battle shonen genre. So with a series that had so many boxes, what could have possibly been the reason for it being cut down so early in its life? This series, more than anything else we have talked about today, presents us with a real puzzle as to what may have happened. Everyone has their guesses, and in general, it's believed we know the basic reasoning behind the choice. All it comes down to, we suppose, is timing. Phantom Seer was certainly an amazing idea, one that clearly interested a lot of people, but sadly it came out at the wrong time, either being too early or too late. The current state of Shonen Jump, looking at the past few years, has had quite a few darker or demon-esque battle shonens join the pages of Jump. We had Demon Slayer, which absolutely decimated the medium with its explosive sales, Jujutsu Kaisen's runaway success, and the absolutely insane event that was Chainsaw Man. With so many darker stories on the pages of Jump, any similar series that couldn't put out similar numbers, or better, were given little leniency. It harkens back to what I was saying earlier. The magazine likes to have a wide variety of genres on the page to grab as many demographics as possible, and Phantom Seer was the one that took the bullet. We saw similar fates from Ayashimon and Dororodon, they just couldn't meet the wild expectations of their peers. The fate of Phantom Seer is one of the more unfortunate casualties of the magazine in recent history, but none of this really answers the initial question, why do I read everything in the magazine, despite so many of the series that come and go lead nowhere and leave only disappointment? That's a very interesting question I have to ask myself, and it's one I've struggled with for some time. Honestly, I think a large part of the reason is fairly simple. I enjoy it. How we consume media and what it means for us as people varies from person to person. I know from personal experience and many conversations with friends that many people aim to get very different things from entertainment. Some people treat it as a simple way to have fun after work. Some people make a hobby of pouring their time into a single thing. And some people simply pick and choose whatever happens to interest them. But me? I see Shonen Jump and its evolving landscape as entertainment all on its own. I like to see what stories come out, who is creating them, and the environment in which they grow. Getting to see and guess which series will rise above the rubble brings me some strange joy, as well as bringing me a pain when a series I was rooting for gets to the axe. It's the series of highs and lows that I enjoy, I suppose. Over nearly 3 years now, I've been dedicated to reading everything, tracking the evolution of the magazine, and seeing what slight personality changes happen when a new series comes in, almost like a ship of Theseus. I'm very aware why people would choose not to go down the path I have. To be blatantly honest, many of the series coming out at any given time are lucky to be anything more than mediocre, and it can definitely be a slog at times. I don't blame anyone for not wanting to waste their time on something they don't enjoy, as that is really the whole reason why we read in the first place. I simply managed to find my own joy out of it all, and I honestly don't see myself ever stopping. So why should you, and why do I, read Axe Fodder? It's the chance to find something special, the chance to be of the first to support a series that could be big one day. It's the chance to get a better understanding of the medium, and the culture that influences its pages. It's the peek into something that we would never have context for otherwise. I do it because I wouldn't have it any other way. I think that's about everything I have to say on the matter. I'm sure I got lost in the weeds a bit, but I hope you were able to glean something from my words today, or at the very least I hope you could come to understand why you should read Axe Fodder. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a nice night.